Maru-han begins as a classic shut-in, stuck in his room and paralyzed by social anxiety and obsessive quirks. But as the tale goes on, he turns into the coldest, most deadpan Chad ever. In a place where every person has just one special gift, this scary threat ruins the rules by eating monsters to pile up endless powers. Oh, and he works for Ken, a ripped, amazing woman with abs you definitely shouldn't be thinking about licking. While it looks like Maru has an easy life, the odds are actually stacked against him because in just 1 year, monsters will rain down from the sky and throw the world into chaos, leaving him to stop it all. But before that disaster happens, let's rewind the clock to where the tale truly starts. A locked-off zone deep inside a forest camp. A guy lies on the ground with blood on his shirt, staring at the bodies in front of him, and in desperation, he shouts that something is hiding inside that yellow dust. A silhouette steps closer, brandishing a massive red sword studded with bells at its tip. The boy begs for help right before a strange creature jumps out of the bushes and snatches his foot. The man gets pulled into the thick smoke, leaving a fading trail behind him, only to be found dead somewhere later. His friends stared at him and told him he shouldn't have been wandering around there. The guy in glasses frets that they'll have to file a casualty report, but the black-haired one points out the footprints and says they'd better start working before it's too late. Just then, the beautiful girl hears the sound of water splashing near her. The three of them turn around as she steps forward, her hand tucked deep in her pocket. She slides a knife across her palm, and as the blade soaks in her blood, the dark fluid climbs up her arm, mixing with the sword. The man with glasses points at the dust and says it's coming, but the girl steps forward and says she'll take care of it. That small knife seems to have swallowed her whole arm and has grown into a huge sword. On her back, the mark proves she belongs to the Yellow Dust Task Force. Then the scene jumps to a brand new spot. Inside a building in Seoul, a public service job interview is happening right now. People sit in the waiting room as their numbers get called. In the bathroom, someone whispers that they feel like they're about to die. He refuses to go inside, desperate only to run home because his heart is about to burst. He pressed his hand against his racing heart and declared that this was impossible. He splashes water on his face, whispers that he can do it, and reminds himself that even with so many pills left, at least they work, until he looks over and sees a tiny bird landing on a branch. The little creature gazed at him, and he stared right back with all his focus. After a quiet second, the creature opens a huge eye, asks what he's looking at, says the guy is screwed, but the guy just laughs and calls panic attacks a real disaster. As we head to the interview room, the news flashes a report that 4 men who were camping have gone missing near the province. Our hero trudges forward, whispering to himself that he can make it. Maru-han, a 29-year-old who seems like the most ordinary person you could meet, exists in this story. He's just a regular kid from an average school who went to a not-so-great university and can't find work, so he tells his mom, "I'm so scared, man. I don't know if her heart or her jaw is bigger." It's taken our guy 5 long years to finally reach the interview stage for a public servant job. Suddenly, a woman bursts into the room and shouts his name. He jumps up with excitement, shouting that he's finally here and telling himself that this time he'll definitely make it. He stomps in with a stiff walk, pretending everything will be easy, until he trips right in front of the big boss behind the laptop, who immediately asks why he wants to be a civil servant. He blurts out an awkward, shouting that he wants to give back to the community and help society, and yeah, that's it. Deep down, he really just wants a steady paycheck and a safe, predictable life with no wild adventures. Then the interviewer asks him what he would do if his boss made a mistake. Maru admits he'd honestly point out mistakes and find solutions while staying positive, but he's just lying because if he said he wouldn't get involved, these guys wouldn't accept him and he wouldn't really mind other people's business anyway. Then he asks how to handle people. With a bright and confident smile, he claimed he's bad at it and gets bullied for his panic attacks. But inside he was imagining how to say he's actually super friendly, has great friends, and still keeps in touch with everyone. The interviewer looks puzzled while the fool realizes he finally spoke the words he was meant to think and thought the things he was meant to say, and what an idiot he is until the guy just clears his throat and says they'll move on to the last question. A flash of light glints off his glasses as he wonders how Maru got through the hardest moment of his life. Maru acts like a complete fool, bragging that life has been easy for him and that he hasn't faced much trouble. But the man keeps pushing, telling him to just say whatever problem pops into his head, and Maru, all tangled up, admits he can't think of anything except that trip to the mountains he took with his dad. That is when he remembers standing right there in that yellow mist. His heart pounds as he remembers the black creature with golden eyes staring right at him. Now his breaths come short and shallow. Before the tiny Maru stood a monster with a head full of eyes and a floor covered in bloody bodies. With his vision blurring as the interview freezes, his chair tips backward and sends him crashing to the floor. He stares up at the spinning ceiling until the interviewer rushes over to shake him and ask if he's okay, only for the boy to try holding in his vomit during his panic attack, ending up soaking the interviewer with a mess that is too late to stop. And just like that, we were back in his house, finding him lying on the bed and muttering that it was a disaster. He thinks the interview is a total wash, and with no job, no girlfriend, and no friends, he feels lost on how to live a normal life until someone suddenly knocks on his door with no idea who it could be. He stumbles to the door in a mess, opens it, and asks what it is, only to face a towering figure that might be a woman or something far more incredible. The giant man asks why he didn't speak up sooner. He calls out to her mom and watches her step into the room, a towering 3-meter giant built like a JoJo character, yet she still has that special motherly touch. She told him she'd dropped off some food and was ready to go. He thanked her and asked if there was any meat. She says there's nothing left but kimchi and beans, but he thanks her all the same. She has a jawline so perfect it would make anyone obsessed with it jealous. So she looks around and sees him happily sitting crookedly while eating instant noodles, wiping his mouth with dirty napkins, and gulping down soda. Watching the chaos everywhere, she immediately starts cleaning while wondering how anyone could live in such filth. And when he promises to tidy up later, she's far more curious about how the interview went. That was the final hit, and the poor guy slumped to the floor totally beaten. He whispers to himself that there's no way he's going to tell her he threw up on the interviewer. His mother folds her arms and thumps his back, telling him that if he can't pass this one test, there's no point in worrying about anything else. Even as he endures his pain, she calmly continues her work. A little while later, she even slips him a few bills. He feels her kindness deeply but says no, claiming he's grown up and has to get to work. But man, she just reaches out with her huge arm, flexing every muscle, and he instantly gives in. She scratched her huge chin and said that if he failed the interview, the shaman had been right. She tells him he must go to the mountain, and though he freezes in terror for a second, the next thing we know, they are standing there under the blazing sun, him bundled up in a sweater and pants, proving he is a true otaku. As he wonders how many years have passed, he realizes he never thought he'd be back here, standing before the mountain where it all began. But then he remembers his mother talking to a skilled shaman about why he struggles to find a job. The shaman said it wasn't his panic attacks or ADHD that were causing the trouble. 20 years after his father vanished, the boy still felt a heavy, dirty mark on his soul that he needed to wash away. Until he made that offering on the mountain to honor his father, he couldn't move forward, and after walking so far, he didn't know when he'd finally reach his goal. Finally, he stops in front of the gate, whispers this is it, opens it, hesitates for a moment, and then glances to the side. In that instant, he appears to spot a mirror image of himself, so transparent that it could be either a soul or a memory. The boy sprints to the front door, slowly pushes it open, and finds a man standing inside with his back turned. Maru flings the door wide and simply stands there, staring. After a pause, he steps closer, pulls on his dad's pant leg, and says he's hungry, but his dad wears a weird look and suddenly begins screaming. The boy flinches and the illusion shatters, only for a sharp chest pain to hit him as he realizes another panic attack is starting. He draws in a long breath and lets it out. Now feeling a bit calmer, he reaches into his backpack, pulls out the liquor, and pours it into a cup. He flings the ball all over the house as he tells his dad he hopes he's having a great time wherever he is. He says he's here only because his mother sent him to honor his father's memory and pray to the mountain spirits. He tells of how, after his dad died, his mom worked harder than ever just so he could grow up and get a job. As he prays and offers his gift, the yellow dust begins to creep in. Maru wonders if all that smoke means there's a fire in the mountains, so he starts running quickly, telling himself that staying safe is the most important thing. But then a strange voice echoes, repeating safety first, and he wonders if it was just a sound bouncing back, so he turns around to look. Amidst the yellow fog, a figure steps out to mock your hesitation before a bloated, burst-headed monster shouts, safety first, which confused Maru into thinking it was just another trick of his mind. He rubs his eyes, hoping the blur will fade away. No matter what it is, it keeps coming closer to him. He senses something is off and knows he has to start running right now. Suddenly, something sharp cuts right through his stomach. Kneeling on the ground, he's starting to think this might be the end of him. He spent his entire life studying and fighting for a job, never getting to enjoy a single thing. On the other hand, he smirks, thinking that if he dies, he'll finally be free of work and bills, and besides, no one will even care. But then he thinks of his giant, confident mom. She always worked hard, stood by him through everything, and was just happy to watch her son succeed. Giga Chad's sheer bravery makes him rise despite the object still stuck in him. But as he vows not to die there, the creature catches his smell and moves closer, looking weird while repeating its warnings to stay safe. The monster lunges forward to take a bite, and you can see an eye right inside its mouth. The creature snaps onto Maru's waist, and he struggles to twist away before the monster's giant jaws sink into his shoulder, causing him to scream in pain as he worries he'll black out if this keeps up. That's when he recalls his father telling him to eat. So if the monster can bite, he can too. He sinks his teeth into the creature's neck and rips a piece off. A brutal move that leaves the monster writhing in pain while its giant eye inside its mouth just stares at him, clearly never expecting to lose the fight this fast. From inside its eye, a shadowy power leaks out from its head. Maru's mind is suddenly filled with terrifying images of so many bodies being dragged away by those creatures. These meat-eating monsters turn on one another and tear each other apart. A strange green eye watches everything from above, keeping a close watch on the battlefield. Maru struggles to make sense of the metallic taste in his mouth, wondering if he's already dead, until someone calls his name and a guy to his left asks why he's loitering in the restricted area. With blood still on his lips, Maru stands up in shock, frantically scanning the area to find where the monster from the yellow dust vanished. The guy in the Hawaiian shirt is asking Maru what he saw and what he said. Maru tells us that a yellow mist appeared beside him before a monster attacked, and now he has just woken up. He knew he was about to die because a sharp thing had pierced right through his stomach. The people who found him looked at each other and gave quiet hand signals. The dude in the Hawaiian shirt says he thought the demon alarm was a mistake, but it wasn't, and looks like the kid did it. The girl shakes her head and says that while drinking a demon's blood can give you its power, you won't be able to use those abilities right away. The guy looks at Maru, says his name, and asks if he knows what happened yesterday. Maru, looking like a mess in his torn shirt, wonders what that fashion challenger means by yesterday. He checks his phone and nearly jumps because he's been out cold for a whole day, while the guy claims that surviving this long must mean he's gained powers. But the girl says it's too soon to tell since he just woke up and won't understand yet, so he tells her not to worry, puts his hands on Maru's shoulders and says he arrived exactly when needed and is going to have to take part. Maru doesn't understand what the guy wants, but he's ordered to change first because his clothes are falling apart. A short while later, they return to the port to get their special service training. Maru sits there in his old shirt, completely lost. How did he suddenly find himself giving a briefing to government officials? And the vibe is far from friendly. Everyone looked wrong, their faces twisted in creepy ways. That's when a person wearing red clogs strolls in. She pulls up her pants, mutters about the weird new woman, wonders if everyone is doing that tongue thing, then introduces herself as Yu Yang, the boss of the place, and welcomes the new staff. Maru holds up his hand to say he probably shouldn't be part of this, but she just tells him not to worry because she got his info and he's officially hired. The poor guy just stands there totally confused by what this crazy woman is saying. She goes on in her script, saying everyone here should know the special folks at this place who work to keep us safe. They're strictly forbidden from telling anyone they work there, not even their family or closest friends. If these secrets get out, they'll face punishment for breaking the country's safety rules. Maru whispers to himself that these words carry a heavy, terrifying weight. Yu Yang tells everyone that since demon blood entered their veins this month, they might have all gained a new power, though it's a rare chance for each of them. Maru knows right away that he must have bitten the monster's neck to make it happen. She goes on to say that they're lucky because demons only live in the mountains right now. A swirling cloud of yellow dust is the first warning that a demon is coming, and the darker the haze, the fiercer the beast will be. She then shouts for Xinwu, and he lifts his hand to respond. She says that since he got his power from a level 7 monster, she's excited to see what he can really do. The handsome guy replied with confidence that he'd do his best and told her not to worry at all. Then Yu Yang turns her gaze to Maru. She says he got a special power from a level 1 demon and wants to know what it is. Still feeling confused, he admits he doesn't know what his special power is yet. Right away, a smug guy nearby starts laughing, and though he deserves a bite to the neck, I'll let it go since that would be strange. Maru felt annoyed but chose to ignore it. After all, he just wants to leave this place, but suddenly a loud alarm screams in the room. Yu Yang says the timing is perfect, signaling that a demon has appeared. The very next moment they're climbing the mountain, and she declares it's time for the practical test. The perfect chance to try out their new skills, though our dear Maru is asking why he's even here since all he really wants is to get out before things get dangerous. But just as he thinks about safety again, he runs into the damn yellow dust. His face tells the whole story. He is terrified beyond belief. Then, as the fog grows thick, he spots the shadowy shape of a woman. It's the girl with the mummy arm, and he wonders if she is okay. Suddenly, she spun around, and Maru jumped. She stuck a 3-meter-tall creature right through with a stick. Maru crashes to the ground in shock while the crowd watches with wide eyes. Yu Yang points everyone's eyes to the front and says the real test has started. The beast standing before them looked mighty, yet it was merely a rank 1 demon, the weakest of them all. Captain Kong had already pinned the target to the wall, so there was no need for anyone to worry, while he instead focused his curious eyes on the kid with the stunned face who had somehow taken down a demon all by himself the day before. because gaining powers right when facing a monster was something Kong had never seen before. Meanwhile, Yu Yang was thrilled and shouted for everyone to power up their abilities. Our boy stood there in the cold, staring wide-eyed at the huge creature, wondering if that woman had gone crazy. He didn't know how to fight that, so panic rushed back in, squeezing his chest and making it hard to breathe. In a split second, he was suddenly standing on top of a river that ran red. A shaggy, ugly beast that looked like a cross between a woman and a dog with black legs shuffled closer. He stood there taking the hit until the monster nearly touched his head, grabbed him by the skull and ordered him to eat, leaving him in a weird mental loop like a Naruto fan character. To anyone watching from the outside, he looked like a serious character straight out of Tokyo Ghoul. While everyone else was nervous, he was practically drooling, saying he just wanted to eat. And it wasn't just a drop of spit. No, this was high-quality illustrated drool. A hand brushed his shoulder, making him jump. Shinwoo wondered if the laughter was just a reaction to fear. Maru answered honestly that he was just starving, which made me want to punch Shinwoo for thinking Maru was weak for being hungry. Now that I know our kid is a Tokyo Ghoul, maybe it's time to give him a bite. Maru quieted his racing thoughts, trying to figure out what that strange thing was and why his hunger felt so intense. Yu Yang stood at the mountain's peak and called out to everyone. Before they could use their powers, she had to explain the basics first. She explained that the yellow mist only appeared because of the demons, and the bigger and meaner the demon, the thicker the mist became. She then drew out a knife and added that this wasn't even the end. She sliced her hand to show that anyone with demon powers could heal incredibly fast while inside the mist. But since a deadly blow could still kill them, they had to stay sharp, knowing their powers only worked when they were fighting monsters inside the mist, making them just normal people the moment they left it. Shinwoo, the humblest man in Korea, yawned and asked how much longer she planned on talking. First, you need to learn how to activate the power. Then he promised to give it a shot. He bit so hard on his lip that blood began to flow, drawing the yellow mist right toward him. A spark inside him woke up, making him feel stronger and turning his eyes a bright golden color. The only way to win was to let the fog flow right into his veins. He slipped on a glove, called out that it was time to start, and then the stick stuck in the monster's head suddenly blew up. Kong yelled for everyone to be careful as the yellow mist started wrapping around them. As soon as it was free, the beast let out a deafening roar aimed right at them and then slammed its massive weight onto the ground. The fresh faces who had just started this job were already scared out of their minds. Kong stepped forward to help, but Yu Yang told her to stay right where she was. Kong insisted the task was too hard for beginners, but Yu Yang refused, saying it was the perfect time to practice because if they couldn't handle a level 1 creature, they would die anyway. The monster suddenly sniffed the air and stared right at Maru, who stood frozen in fear. He instantly wondered why that cursed thing was staring at him. Then suddenly its hand opened and a knife shot out, flying straight at Maru because that damn thing was fast. Maru grabbed the arm that collapsed to the ground in agony. Kong felt bad for him as he twisted around in agony. He scrambled back to his feet with a throbbing arm, only to find the monster lunging closer, ready to crush him. The beast crashed down right next to him, then moved forward on quiet, creeping steps. They stared at each other just as the creature reached out, but then something exploded out of the ground. A giant centipede monster curled its many legs around the creature. The beast was being strangled by the very thing it was facing. It turns out Shinwoo's power was a demon centipede, which was pretty ugly for a guy who loved being handsome. Then the girl student jumped from behind and sliced the monster's head off. Her power came from the Rojo demon, whatever it was. You saw the monster screaming into the sky after losing half his brain, filling the air with thick mist, while the girl smirked and said, "At least we won." Then the yellow mist twisted back into the beast's head, bringing it back to full strength. The silly ones finally saw that the beast could heal itself like crazy, so the monster snatched the centipede right out of Shinwoo's neck. Because it was attached to his arm, the beast swung him like a whip and hurled him straight at the girl. Then it yanked Shinwoo back and held him tight, acting like a petty bully. It opened its huge mouth to take a bite, but then something inside the glove suddenly snapped. The monster's neck snapped violently, and it finally let Shinwoo go. Now it clicked. Shinwoo wasn't just a show-off. He was a real badass with the power of a temple demon who could crush the monster's bones just by breaking his own. The beast charged at him, so Shinwoo ripped off his glove and smashed his own wrist, screaming for the pain to kill him. With that, the monster's whole neck snapped in a burst of explosions. Its body hit the floor hard, leaving its head right at his feet like a soccer ball. Shinwoo told the stunned trainees that cutting off a demon's head stopped it from using its mist, calling it a perfect chance to try something new, until Kong stepped up and asked if he had broken her stick to wake the demon, noting the kid had serious villain potential. He just said no and asked where the proof was. She grabbed his arm and suggested they quickly test if her weapon broke again by snapping his fingers. With a cheerful clap, Yu Yang praised Shin was great first try, but she soon realized our boy was already gone, having bolted away to avoid doing such a job. He just wanted a quiet, normal life, not one where he had to fight dark demons using cursed powers. Someone had to remind him that he was the hero of the tale, so he wouldn't be running away from the action anytime soon. Yu Yang shook her head, declaring that anyone who ran away like that wasn't fit to be a special agent, while Kong still struggled to make sense of what he'd seen, noting that with so many targets around, the creature had clearly chosen to hunt him. Yu Yang shouted for them to rush and make sure he was still breathing. But then, Kong was the only one who saw the strange truth. The yellow mist should have vanished when the leader died, and soon everyone else began to wonder the same thing. Meanwhile, Maru stood before a gate wreathed in thick, weird mist, wondering why it was even there. Just then, a giant new monster showed up, forcing Maru to hide behind a bush, and he wondered why it was chasing him again. Why did he, the one who just wanted to get away, have to stumble right into this mess? He looked again to see if the monster had gone, but it was still right behind him. Just then, the TikToker with the bright hair waved and called out to Kong Chana, and that's her name, folks. She asked what was happening, and he explained that headquarters had sent a warning. A dangerous level 3 demon was spotted nearby. Yu Yang felt strange because demons rarely showed up in such a row. Kong wanted to know where, and well, we already knew the answer, didn't we? Our boy was sprinting for his life through the forbidden zone, sliding on the ground and screaming for help until he tripped over a rock and face-planted. He stood up and saw that familiar house, his father's old home. At the very least, he knew this place well enough to find a hiding spot. He burst through the iron door of a house, hid behind it, and panted hard while wondering what that thing was, then peeked through a crack to convince himself the monster wouldn't chase him this far. Of course, it was right there, and he couldn't stop wondering why this thing was so obsessed with him. He had no clue what those strange shapes floating around his head actually were. Just then, the gate swung open and a blind old man stumbled inside, blindly shouting for help while wondering about the thick yellow fog, completely unaware of the 15-foot monster grinning right in front of him, ready to eat him. Maru knew he had to act fast to save the old man before he was killed. The trouble was that he just wasn't strong enough, so how could he possibly pull this off? That's when he recalled Yu Yang's warning. Anyone with demon powers could heal their wounds while inside the mist, but even a deadly blow would still be enough to take his life. His hands shook as he realized death might be the only thing waiting for him. Maybe he should just stay in the shadows and keep his own skin instead of throwing his life away for some stranger he barely knows. The old man narrowed his eyes into the distance and wondered if that figure was Chong-sik's mother. Even the monster looked puzzled, repeating her words, but the old woman stepped closer to scold it for copying her. Then she froze, realizing just how close she was, and though her eyes were usually poor, seeing this detail so clearly made her cataracts seem like no big deal. She froze in terror as the giant monster loomed right in front of her, stumbling backward while trying to make sense of the impossible sight before her. While that monster just kept repeating her words over and over. It lifted a single finger to aim its spikes and struck, sending blood flying, and I'd bet my last dollar that Maru would have thrown himself in front of it to take the hit. Just as the old woman's eyes slowly opened, she saw the boy bleeding out right in her lap. He whispered that he hoped she was all right. She said yes, but he fell into her arms, broken and pierced with so many wounds that there was nothing left of him but a pile of bones. As the kid struggled to stay awake, he begged the old lady to run, while cursing his useless level 1 ability. His strength was just as useless as the job resumes he kept sending out. In the end, he was doomed to die and couldn't even help the old woman. So all he wanted was for someone stronger to finally come and save him. As he waited for help, a yellow mist slowly started to slide into his arm. Veins on his neck began to stand out like ropes. And then the glowing cultural jewel appeared, prompting him to suddenly charge at the monster to bite it, while Kong sprinted through the forest. She heard a scream right behind her and spun around. She tore through the gate and saw something completely crazy. Maru was happily eating the monster's neck, but it grabbed her head and smashed her against the wall, leaving the rookie horrified and confused. He was barely awake, yet he seemed to have swallowed the bite he took, while the monster beside him was absolutely furious. As the monster scrambled away, Kong spotted that the bite Maru took had stopped healing, but she knew worrying about it now would be a waste of time. She jumped high and grabbed one of the monster's crystals just as she charged at it. With a swift motion, she turned her glowing crystal into a razor-sharp sword, catching the monster's flying spikes with a perfect spin as it roared in rage. The creature had to fight back against the very thing it had unleashed. But now she stood right before it, a deadly and beautiful thing. A sharp, straight-down slice cut the monster in two, and instantly it turned into a pile of dust. The fighting had finally stopped. Blood fell like rain, soaking everything in a deep red. She walked up to the old woman and asked if she was all right. She looked like she had suddenly passed out. Moments later, she jolted awake in a confused daze, only for Kong to calmly reassure her that a wild boar had just passed by, leaving her to wonder if the blood had simply turned to dust. The old woman grumbled that wild boars often wander through these parts. Kong told her not to worry, promising to take care of the trouble himself. She gave a big thank you for all her hard work before heading back home. Kang's face shifted instantly as she turned to Maru, ready to figure out what this kid was up to. She had never seen a level 1 ability like that turn nothing into a whole arm, even though such power should have been impossible. The scene shifts to our guy, who is screaming in frustration because he just got a message saying he has to start work tomorrow. But after remembering the spiked monster that almost killed him, he had zero interest in showing up for that job. Maru threw himself onto his bed, grumbling that he absolutely would not go to that job. But on the other hand, he truly needed to get back to work. Whether he needed a job or not, he was so tired he couldn't think. So he chose to sleep, though this man never found a single moment of peace. Just like before, he dreamed of a war where red monsters were eating each other alive. A voice shouted from behind, urging him to turn around. Suddenly, he jolted awake drenched in sweat, gasping for air as he stared at his hands, still trying to make sense of the nightmare he just lived through. Morning broke, and he looked out to see the whole mountain burning in flames. With trees and bushes already engulfed in flames, an ash-covered monster marched forward spreading fire, until a soaking wet girl stepped in to spray it with water, though her tiny splashes clearly wouldn't make a dent. But she wasn't alone, because someone else showed up and threw ice at the monster, freezing its legs solid and turning it into a giant popsicle. The girl shouted for the leader, complaining that creatures like this shouldn't be out at night, but he told her to ignore that for now and first put out the fire before it got bigger. The monster was starting to turn the ice into water. He drew 2 swords and promised to handle things, then raced toward the beast. Right then, a creepy eye popped out of his forehead and ordered them to bring that person. In an instant, the monster was free. The captain and the monster moved closer together. One had a blade ready to cut, while the other was about to throw a punch. At the very least, the guy got a block in. But even then, he was launched into a tree, slamming against it so hard he was completely wrecked. The drenched girl screamed for the leader in sheer panic. The creature curled up, and a glowing cauldron appeared on its back. As the lava started pouring out and the captain saw the monster growing larger and fiercer, alarms were screaming and screens turned red at headquarters in Seoul. Yuyong called out for everyone to give him a quick update. With so many warning signs flashing red, it was clear that things were falling apart quickly. A staff member said that 20 mountains were being attacked all at once. Suddenly, the way these creatures showed up had changed. This strange thing had only begun this week, but no one knew why. One of the staff cut in to say they were getting an urgent call from Busan. Yuyong replied right away, eager to know what was wrong. She was instantly greeted with a cheerful "Hey, big sis" from Bom Myung-sik, the director of the Busan division, who asked when she planned to visit his city. She sighed, waved him over, and insisted he finally get to the point. And that was when he told us what was going on. A doorway to another world had been standing open for 3 straight days. Yuyong stood frozen in disbelief, wondering how such a thing could ever happen. Monsters kept streaming out until the guards were completely drained from fighting without any chance of stopping. Yuyong asked why the portal wouldn't shut, and they quickly found out the reason. Myung-sik said the monster just kept saying the same thing over and over. They even sent a girl who could speak the language to solve the puzzle, and the monster's demand was simple: bring that person. As the monster kept tearing things apart, Yuyong shouted to ask just who this person really was. Myung-sik finally admitted the problem. They had absolutely no clue what was happening. He didn't know who it was, but whoever showed up had better do it quickly. Yuyong then called someone to get a helicopter. The man picked up the phone, asked what was wrong, and after she quickly explained the mountain situation, he stepped right off the helicopter's edge without a second thought, told her he was coming, and promised to call once he'd taken care of it. And with that, he jumped and fell through the air like a shooting star. As he made his way down, he floated through a thick wave of yellow mist. With no fear in his heart, he suddenly reversed space to float in the air and landed softly on top of the gate. The folks below were stunned, asking who this crazy person was who just showed up out of nowhere. One of the women screamed for him to drop, warning that it was too risky. The red-hooded demon grinned as if he were thrilled that you had finally arrived. He shot forward to the woman, ready to kick her right in the face. She just barely managed to dodge. The problem was that the monster loomed right above her, and she had no way to escape. But then, the newcomer grabbed something out of nowhere, tore open a hole in space, and yanked the monster's whole spine right out. The creature stopped dead in its tracks, wide-eyed with shock. He cheerfully told everyone they could relax now since he would take over from here, which made the captain very happy but left the girl wondering just who this mysterious stranger was. The captain explained that this was the first special ability user and the very founder of the task force, and as the guy stretched and placed a hand on the ground, he declared it was time to face the strongest demon ability user, Director John Mild. Purple lines stretched across the floor and climbed up until they towered over the moon. Everyone far away just stared, wondering what in the world that thing could possibly be. The guy wearing glasses admitted he'd never seen this in real life, but he knew that in theory, it was the strongest power of all. John cut his way through the thick yellow fog while the magma beast on the burning peak grew huge, forcing the ice and water fighters to give up. The girl had fallen down, so the guy yelled for her to get up or they'd both die. The lava monster lunged forward once more. The ice user frantically threw up a wall of ice, but the monster crashed right through it and sent him flying. It hammered at him again and again until the shield broke, sending him crashing to the ground gasping for air, knowing this was the end. Suddenly, a crack opened up right behind the monster. John ripped the beast's head right through it, sending the whole thing flying away. The blast sent the crows flying wild across the sky. John shouted that it was time to deal with this beast and every other one like it. He flipped the switch on every single rift unit. Across Kangwon province, a poor boy was being stomped on by a terrifying monster. The monster muttered in a weird language before stabbing him, but suddenly a tear appeared behind it and yanked the beast right inside. No matter which mountain was being attacked, the exact same thing began to happen everywhere. The monsters were dragged toward the very same spot. This was a good thing on one hand. Now everyone was focused, but it was also very risky. A staff member worried that the danger lights were fading, but the director smiled calmly, saying it only meant he had arrived safely. Good news? John's plan worked and all the monsters were in one place. Bad news? John's plan worked and all the monsters were in one place. John was so excited that he began to fight, tearing open a hole in space for each demon and spinning like a dancer to slice them apart. Suddenly, demon heads shot up into the air, leaving the whole squad staring in total shock. They had never seen anyone as powerful as that before. John stepped up to the magma beast and shouted for the translator. He gave her the job of taking care of this. He then asked the monster why everyone had suddenly gotten so worked up this week. The translator passed on the reply, "Bring that person," making John frown and ask, "Who is this person?" Before the monster just repeated the question back. The translator said the creature was just repeating everything John said. John didn't hesitate. He smashed the beast into the dirt and declared, "If that's the way it is, we'll just keep killing them until they stop coming," then turned his bloody gaze toward the gate. Once more, he pressed his hand to the earth and tore open a gap in space right below it. The whole place was swallowed up, which honestly was a pretty efficient way to handle things. One squad member in the back let out a sigh of relief, feeling much safer now that they had someone like John to count on. In a flash, he shut off his power and the gate vanished. The next day at the office, Yu-Yun rushed to ask John about the portal, and he simply said it was hidden in his black void while he was too tired to talk much. But that annoying woman just told him to handle everything just like he always does. John groaned, admitting that even he had his limits. He knew he couldn't run the whole organization alone, so he flipped on the TV to show he got it, having already pulled the photos of the new recruits she asked for. Yu-Yun wondered why he was so fixated on them. He told me he was trying to figure out what the demons wanted. He wasn't satisfied with that. He had to find out why those demons wanted him. In the middle of a mountain of giant monsters, Brianna's dead body stood alone while she still shouted, "Bring him." Just as Maru arrived at work for his very first day, his mother cried tears of joy when she heard he'd landed a government job, and since she was so thrilled, he simply couldn't say no. As soon as Maru stepped in, the man in the Hawaiian shirt grabbed him and demanded to know why he'd returned, shaking his head in disgust and declaring that cowards had no place on his team, while Maru could only smell the stench of alcohol on him. The real boss came out to meet them, but Sianwar, still angry, snapped that he refused to stay and demanded to be moved to the main city right away. But the leader just shrugged, admitting he had no idea why a level 7 was sent here either, which clearly showed something was wrong with him. No matter what happened, both of them were welcomed into Gangwook's team. Maru wondered what he'd be doing here now that there were no demons to hunt. The moment the leader swung the door open, Maru saw the whole office in chaos, with people fighting off zombies and cutting apart strange creatures. But then, the dream vanished and I was standing in a plain, ordinary office just like any other. The man wearing a Hawaiian shirt introduced himself as Go Diakman, the team leader. The girl wearing glasses was Eun Jaiwan, a seasoned expert with 7 years under her belt. The plant man, who had also been at this place for 7 years, was named Kim Mi-baek. We already knew the tick-taker, Yozab, who had just 1 year of experience. Godiakman told the group to get along and sit anywhere, so the sweating Maru found a seat, nervously wondering if everyone else was just as stressed on their first day before greeting his new co-workers to make a good impression. But then Sianwar, sitting right across from him, glared and told him to stop staring. Poor Maru felt completely crushed, while Sunwoo fumed with anger at being banished to this lonely spot. So Maru shifted his focus to Yozab, who was busy scrolling through fancy designer brands on his computer. He wanted to know exactly what their job was. Yozab casually gestured around, telling us he was part of a special team that fought against the yellow dust. 13 divisions patrolled Seoul, with the strongest ones, the level 7 and above, chosen for secret missions. Their island was basically a place for the foolish or the strange. Maru instantly understood where he was. But even so, there was something strange about this place. Yozab mentioned that some talented folks stepped up to take on this job. Suddenly, they both swung their heads around. Damn, that girl worked her tail off, and Maru felt awkward as he stood tall only to catch her staring right at him. Jaiwan told her to head home after her shift was over at the station. So she simply sat there, explaining that she had no reason to go home anyway. Kong Chana watched everything happen, noticing quietly that Maru had ended up here and realizing something strange must be going on. She woke up with no memory of yesterday, while Maru stared in shock at his new job offer, realizing that even the good pay couldn't hide the fact that he was always walking on thin ice. Then, Yozab said the pay was 5 times what it usually is. Maru's face shifted instantly at the sight of the huge sum, while Yozab, feeling annoyed and busy, snapped at him to leave him alone. Meanwhile, Maru stood there confused, wondering just what on earth he was supposed to do in this place. Days turned into weeks, and he slowly grew comfortable with the new world around him. He never thought he'd land such an easy gig that paid so well. Then Go Diakman stretched to mark the end of the workday and walked over to the 2 new hires to ask if they had any troubles or questions. Sianwar just shook his head no. But Maru kept asking where demons came from and why they were here. Diakman just shrugged his shoulders because nobody knew the answer. Sianwar said that most folks thought they had fallen from the sky. Maru knew no one knew where these creatures came from, yet no one cared because humanity was doomed, and it was frustrating to see people just doing their jobs even when everything was bizarre. Back at headquarters, Yu-Yun stepped into the elevator and wrote it down. She discovered John standing right before a golden capsule. He looked at her and asked what she thought. She checked the reports and noted that the monster attacks had slowed down, but John kept staring at the swirling yellow fog, trying to figure out why so many creatures suddenly appeared. Yu-Yun thought they were finally close to the truth, but John, who was staring at a fallen angel with white hair hanging upside down and tied up, wasn't so sure and muttered that he still didn't believe it. John urged the leaders to stay on high guard, knowing that if everyone else found out, it would cause total chaos. Suddenly, the scene switched to Maru, who looked around confused and asked what everyone was talking about. While the others grilled barbecue, they casually explained that this was exactly why they had to celebrate as much as possible. Yu-Yun said that this prophecy pushed them to make every single day count. Maru was so confused he asked them to finally explain what was happening. Go Diakman finally spoke up, revealing a prophecy that said demons would start falling from the sky in just 1 year. Suddenly, portals would burst open all over the world, soaking the earth in blood. Maru's heart stopped the moment he heard that, because it sounded absolutely terrifying. Go Diakman whispered a top-secret order to keep quiet, while Yu-Yun cheered everyone on to drink until they couldn't hold it anymore. Yozab just wanted to get back home. Kong Chana warned them to watch out, because they had to work the next day. It turns out Sian's greatest weakness was alcohol, as he had already passed out drunk while Maru tried to stop the party, confused why everyone wasn't scared of the coming apocalypse. Just then, a bright golden light burst over the mountain. A door appeared in the sky. A thick cloud of yellow dust started swirling out into the air. Endless hands reached out from inside. As the first bald-headed monster showed up and phones screamed with emergency alerts, Yu-Yun sighed in disappointment that nighttime disasters were so annoying when she just wanted to relax, while Kong Chana stood up and promised to be right back. Sianwood jumped right in and said he was coming with her. But she said no, insisting she needed to hold Maru's hand and bring her along. Maru didn't want any part of this, but there he was, his forehead pressed hard against the car window, trying to figure out how he had gotten himself into such a mess. Kong then called out to him, telling him not to worry so much about the prophecy. Maru answered that this wasn't something to take lightly. She spoke with confidence, certain that those at the top were already getting ready. He didn't realize that unseen giants ran this group, but for now, their only job was to find and kill the demons. Maru shook with fear yet couldn't look away from her cool vibe, and when she mentioned his special ability, her excitement made him wonder what he could actually do. Maru felt a rush of excitement, thrilled that, for the first time, someone actually expected something from him. She casually asked, "I've never seen anyone eat like you before," wondering if it was a strange power, while Maru had no clue what she meant. She said it looked like he could actually eat demons. He detested that noise, but suddenly the screen shifted to show a monster getting stabbed. Kong quickly pinned the thing down and then turned to him. "You're really going to make me say it? Eat it." She beamed, explaining that his power seemed to stop him from healing, so she wanted to see it happen. It was time for him to take a bite, but Maru hesitated, ripping the monster's tentacle instead. By now, he decided it was time to get back to work. The monster looked gross, so he told himself to pretend it was just octopus at a fancy place, leaned in with his teeth showing, and barely took a bite. Kong scolded him, urging him to bite with real force and true focus. Maru let out a long sigh, nodded that he got it, and slowly began to chew. The following day, back at the office, Maru was dying from pain that racked his whole body. Sianwoo smirked and joked that Maru was an idiot for throwing up yesterday. But Maru didn't even care. He simply asked Sianwoo exactly what he expected from him. Sianwoo rolled his eyes and muttered that sending someone like him here was a huge mistake and that they should have picked someone who could actually help. "You should be thankful that Commander Kong cared enough to notice your skill," he muttered before storming off and calling Maru nothing but useless trash. Maru was in deep trouble, but the guy was right that he needed to snap out of it and try harder. That's when the alarm suddenly started screaming. Kong stood up, ready to call out his name. But Maru stood in the bathroom with his hands covering his face, trying to figure out how he could ever learn to eat monsters. He had a special power that was actually quite good, except he used it to eat monsters, which wasn't so good after all. As he walked down the hall, he bumped right into Kong. His heart nearly stopped beating and his soul almost floated out of his body. She lifted her brow and asked if he'd been hiding in the bathroom. Maru admitted he heard the alarm, but he fell ill from food poisoning after taking a bite out of that creature. Kong sighed and dropped her head, whispering that he wasn't built for the job, then explained he didn't have to work for the government just because he had special powers since there was another way out. He could just sign a deal to keep quiet forever, even if it meant living under constant watch for the rest of his life. Maru stood frozen in shock, expecting the other choice to be far simpler than this. Kong added that surviving this was a better fate than dying on the battlefield, because people with his tough mind usually didn't last very long. The way he acted, he might easily be sent on a rescue mission only to mess up and let someone die. If he truly couldn't pull this off, he had to quit his job right away. Kong leaned in close and told Maru that useless people were not welcome, leaving Maru feeling completely roasted at every turn while Kong assumed at the office that Maru must have already given up. You'd think this was the start of his motivation arc, but no. Instead, he was standing on a bridge, actually happy for once. He probably wasn't built for this kind of life, and living under constant watch might have been better than facing death in battle, especially since poor guy never realized he was the main character of a story where running away was simply impossible. Just then, his phone rang and it was his mom. He grabbed it, already thinking about how he didn't want to keep fighting monsters. He greeted her with, "Hey, what are you up to?" And she replied that she was hiking Inwang Mountain. Maru froze, buried his face in his hand, and groaned because he'd already told her to stop climbing. But then the call suddenly got worse. His mother stopped, puzzled by the thick yellow dust in the air. But the moment her question hung there, his heart sank hard as the call ended. Now the drive to keep going was really taking hold. The security team was already at Inwang Mountain, getting ready to face the demon. The guards stood still, not sure what to do next. One of them looked up and saw a creature sitting in a tree biting a human arm, glowing crystal on its forehead, smiling back while Maru raced toward the mountain. Within seconds, every single member of the security team had fallen. As the level 5 demon gobbled up the new recruits with no one left to stop it, a heavyset woman who was the regional leader finally showed up. She used her power to make copies of herself, shouted for the survivors to get help, and held the monster back all by herself. One of them dashed over to grab the landline phone. Since phones didn't work here, that was their only way to stay in touch. Back at headquarters, Yuyong got the urgent message and instantly began organizing the team's response. She warned that the ordinary people right there were in serious trouble and needed help right now. If that level 5 demon ever reaches the city, the streets will run red with blood. With time slipping away, everyone had to keep moving. Just as Maru finally shows up, it turns out he was already there all along. He leaped out of the taxi and ran as fast as he could toward the door. He caught up with the hiking group and frantically searched for his mom. Not spotting her, he asked a guide to let him in because his mother was inside. The guide flatly said no, claiming the wild animals made the place too dangerous to enter. Maru knew the truth because it wasn't wild animals but demons. While the guards kept the front door safe, he quietly climbed the mountain from the back. He took the quickest path upward, climbing while silently praying his mother was safe. Lost in the thick yellow fog, someone stumbled and twisted their ankle. Jigachad mom bent down, told the injured woman to climb on her back, and carried her away. Then she stopped and saw something moving in the fog, whispered, "What is that?" Felt a hand grab her, and realized it was her mom. Maru burst in, trembling with panic, while his mother froze in shock and asked how he could have found her, to which he replied that he had seen her social media post. She wanted to ask about his new government job, but he brushed it off as unimportant, only for the other woman to beam with happiness at his achievement and his mother to eagerly discuss finding him a wife, until Maru sighed to urge them to leave just as a demon appeared right above him. He looked up and locked eyes with it, and instantly his panic struck, leaving his breath ragged and his body frozen in place. Whenever he spotted a demon, this always happened. How in the world was he ever going to keep his mother safe like this? From below, the wounded woman suddenly saw that the attack was happening. "Hey, that boy looks weird." Maru's mother suddenly shouted his name. The demon spun around and launched himself at her. As the demon lunged to grab her, she reached out desperately for her son. Maru tried to charge ahead, but he slipped and rolled down the hill, looking as clumsy as he felt. It was already too late, and the demon was about to sink his teeth into her mother. Maru let out a scream, just as a surprise attack came out of nowhere. The demon fell to the ground with blood running down its back, leaving Maru confused as she stared at it. Where did those knives in its back come from? His mother freaked out. "What the hell is that?" Then she noticed something on her son's head. Maru looked up and saw the knives were his, and he whispered, Oh, shit," he thought as the demon's power surged through him after eating the creature. A terrifying ability he suddenly remembered belonging to one of the monsters he'd fought before. Then he felt a strange sensation in his back, and a second knife appeared right under his control. That meant his power went beyond just stopping him from healing. He could steal abilities, and with a smug smirk, he knew exactly how powerful that made him. "All right, let's see what this power can do," the demon muttered as he crawled away, surprised to find it much weaker than he'd expected. This week, everyone on the mountain was fighting hard against something, while in another spot, a wounded soldier leaned against the fence. 2 agents from headquarters stepped up to him, asking if he was okay, but as he shook and stammered about a terrifying demon that destroyed his team, one agent doubted the story since the area's leader was a powerful level 7 user, while the other asked what kind of ability the level 5 demon had, only for the soldier to reveal it was a mirror ability, which was Maru's biggest problem right then as something began to shimmer on the demon's back. Maru's eyes went wide because the move he just used had been copied. Before he could do anything, the demon struck. Crystals were stuck all over his body, yet Maru wasn't panicking. He was just stunned. "That bastard copied me," the demon hissed as it slowly advanced, its forehead gleaming like a mirror. Maru instantly figured out that this power worked by copying itself. The monster copied his every move. If he strikes, he'll hit back just like that. Suddenly, his mother screamed in pain right behind him. He turned to find her knee bleeding, and even though she worried about his hurt, he only cared about how well she could heal. He pulled up his shirt to reveal his scars and a perfect six-pack, declared that he was fine, realized his special genes had kicked in, and understood that the only way to keep his mother safe was to destroy that monster. He turned to her and said, "Hide. I'll handle this." While his mother looked terrified, but he stood his ground as a public servant sworn to protect the people. He'd fix this in a heartbeat and be right back. He jumped right at the monster, grabbed its waist, and threw it off the mountain peak, pulling it down with him. His mother let out a scream while the crows flew away into the sky. Maru made it to a higher ledge just as the creature crashed below, and he stood up in pain, slowly feeling his body heal itself. For the time being, his only goal was to push the demon away from his mother. If he could buy enough time, the mountain team would show up to sort everything out and make sure everyone was okay. But the 2 fresh agents from headquarters stumbled into something far worse. It wasn't just one level 5 monster, but a whole horde invading, staring down as a bald agent wandered around confused before whispering that the mountain leader could copy herself. He knew he had to wipe out the original body. The real challenge was sorting out exactly which one it was. The other agent didn't even flinch, just grinned and said it didn't matter because he only needed to kill them all. He dove headfirst and slammed his fist into the earth, sending out a powerful blast that hurled the monsters away. The bald agent sighed, knowing his partner was a complete idiot. But he knew one thing for sure. Judging by how the clones were battling, the real one wasn't around. Right beneath Maru, a swirling cloud of yellow dust was growing just as quickly as he was, and he knew that cursed thing would keep coming back no matter what. The trouble was he was getting worn out from constantly trying to heal himself. Then a voice spoke, asking, "What's wrong, Maru?" and his stomach dropped because the demon was mimicking his mother's voice. Maru lost his temper, screamed, "Don't do that!" and hurled knives that missed their target completely. He grumbled that controlling another person's power wasn't as simple as it looked. Right before the creature quietly turned a crystal into a dart and fired it straight into his shoulder. That just made him even angrier. For the first time, he threw out a huge storm of knives. The monster took a direct hit right to its shoulder. Maru cheered, but the creature just grunted, shook itself, and healed instantly, making Maru's heart sink because that monster was actually weaker than him. Suddenly, a memory of his talk with Kangchana surfaced in his mind. She had warned him before, saying he never really listened, and now lying on the ground in pain, Maru wondered if he was just meant to fail. She reached out, pulled him up, and told him he was just afraid of getting hurt because in the yellow mist wounds heal on their own, the pain was just part of the deal, and besides he had to eat those nasty demons to get better. She was still squeezing his hand while talking, and he asked if there was a better way to fight. Kang paused to think before answering that to defeat such a monster, he'd have to slice off its head and stop it from drinking up the yellow dust. Since he had no weapon to strike back, he could only lend his help from the sidelines. But on the flip side, he had the best ability to heal himself. That meant he had to face the monsters without any fear. Back in the present, Maru grinned with confidence. If his power was truly the greatest, he had no reason to fear, especially since his hunger had already filled him with enough strength to slay this beast. Yet he still faced one big problem. Even now, he couldn't find his mark. Hitting her neck with such accuracy would be a real challenge. At the same time, the monster kept making fun of him using his mother's voice, asking, "What's wrong, Maru?" And right then, Maru decided that if he couldn't hit the target, he had only one choice left. He flung another glowing crystal at the demon. It managed to slip away, but when it looked up, Maru was already soaring through the air and charging right at it, leaving the creature no time to react. It blew out a yellow fog to block him, but the mist snapped his knife in half, halting his strike. Then it snatched him by the throat. The monster leaned in close to ask why he fought that way, then shoved him against a rock before hurling both of them to the mountaintop, crashing him into the ground. Maru gasped for air, knowing he couldn't summon his power, but he had to bite the thing anyway. The trouble was that the demon wasn't close enough, so it took a bite right out of his neck first. Maru couldn't hold back his anger, so he pulled a knife from his back and slashed the creature's side. Blood gushed from his wound as he tried to stop it, but the monster just stared while dizziness hit him and his vision blurred. His wound refused to heal, making him wonder if the monkey had somehow copied his power to stop it from healing. Staring at the pool of blood, he had no clue how long he could last. If he failed here, he'd remember another time he talked with Kangchana. She sighed and asked how many times he'd black out before he told her it was a panic attack he couldn't stop, but as his chest tightened and his mind went blank, he was sure he was dying, leaving her to wonder what she would say next. That's the very reason you have to move past it. If things keep going like this, the next time you think you're about to die, you'll actually die. You're the last shield protecting the people. If you fall, they die. And in this moment, Jiga Chadmom was wandering nearby, shouting his name. Maru clung to life, his hand pressed against the wound on his neck, though his face was a sight to make anyone cringe. He reached out and grabbed the glowing crystal. The monkey mimicked him, and Maru recalled Kang's warning to bring the monster down with him. So he bit his lip in anger, let out a scream, and charged straight at the demon. The monster crouched and slashed at his ribs, but Maru had already tossed his dagger high into the air. The creature asked what he was trying to do, and Maru grabbed it and let out a roar. Every crystal he had thrown earlier rushed toward them, and the monster froze as they struck, with the final one from above coming down to cleanly slice off its head. Its legs fell away and its body crumpled down. Maru slipped and tumbled back, while the agents at headquarters watched the monster vanish into nothingness and guessed if they had truly killed the real thing. The man with no hair said, "No, someone had killed it elsewhere," but back on the mountain, Maru's wound slowly healed while he wondered if he had almost died. Then he got up to find his mother only for his father to whisper from behind, "Eat," pointing at the monster's remains and telling him to go back and eat it, which finally made Maru understand. That crazy old man had always known. The monster possessed a rare and mighty gift that could grant him new strength if he ate it. So remembering the prophecy that creatures would fall from the sky in a year, he was driven by his desire to become powerful enough to protect his mother and stepped forward to seize the demon's arm. With that, he started eating his usual dinner. With full confidence and a sharp look, he declared that from this day forward, he would eat any strong demon he met. He even licked his lips. Later, his mom woke up in the hospital wondering if she'd actually blacked out on the mountain, but she didn't worry much and just said she barely remembered anything. Maru felt a huge weight lift off her shoulders because she couldn't recall what happened. In theory, she should have known the monster was right there. Yet he showed her a news report of the mountain's chaos and warned her to stay away from danger from now on. His mom mentioned she'd heard rumors of someone who looked like his dad on the mountain, so she went up to check it out herself. That was the moment Maru began to see the pieces fit together, realizing his father's disappearance on the mountain might not be a coincidence but linked to the demons. A memory flashed back. He stood in the forest, looking up with a terrified, pale face, blood dripping from his mouth as his father's arm was eaten right in front of him. For the first time, he remembered something like that, and a panic attack was rushing toward him until Giga Chad Mom snapped him back by asking why he looked so pale, proving that working for the government was truly exhausting. He admitted he was still a bit wobbly, but he told her not to worry because he was getting used to it. Back at work, a voice called out, "Officer Maru Han," forcing the man who had been hiding to awkwardly step forward and greet everyone. Juwon straightaway asked him what happened the day before and why he had vanished without a word. Sianhua laughed and called the coward a scared rat who fled, but Maru only apologized for leaving his mother behind, while the ever-improving Kong Chana casually claimed he was sick so she could give him a day off, leaving Maru confused about why she was covering for him. She stared at him like she was whispering without a sound, "Don't say a word," while Juwon sighed and said Kong should have told them about this sooner. Kong apologized, but Juwon didn't forgive him so easily, insisting that a real apology was needed after such a big mistake. Before things could get worse, the alarm went off. As soon as Kong put on her gear and announced she was off to slay a level 2 demon, Maru suddenly shouted that she wanted to go with her, leaving everyone speechless before they began their climb up the mountain. As they traveled, Maru felt bad for taking the blame for his error and asked for his forgiveness. Kong shrugged and admitted she was too harsh when he left, but when Maru, panting from the climb up the mountain, asked why he had returned, he simply said he was there to fight. Just then, yellow dust began to swirl into the air. A huge, heavy thing rose up far away. The ground trembled as the monster rushed straight at them. A giant gray, overweight old man roared that he was ready to fight. Kong Chana warned them, "Even though it's only level 2, don't you dare underestimate it." "After all, an entire mountain team was wiped out by a mere level 5 demon," Maru said, knowing exactly who she meant. The one he had defeated yesterday, while Yosik, the tick-taker, casually added that those guys were lucky because HQ had already taken care of the monster. The main branch only welcomed level 7 and above, proving they were on a totally different level. Maru stopped dead in his tracks, torn between speaking up about how he really killed the thing and keeping his secret, even though he had to leave early yesterday and would have to explain a lot, because deep down he just wanted everyone to know how hard he worked. Just as he was about to speak, Kong shouted, "What is that demon up to?" while the creature used its hands to scratch under its arms. Someone shouted at them to get back. Maru suddenly stepped forward and declared, "No need. I'll handle this," leaving Kong looking truly surprised. Since when did a level 1 think they could take on a level 2? Maru pointed at himself while facing the demon, slicking back his hair with a confident grin. It was time to show just how much he had changed since he killed that mountain monster. He copied the monster by scratching his armpits just like it did. "I'm finally not a useless member of this team anymore," a man declared, but a horrific stench suddenly filled the air. The moment the monster sniffed and screamed in terror, fleeing the scene, Maru realized it was his own ability, yet he felt sickened by what he had done and still charged in for a fist fight. "I'm not losing to trash like this," he shouted as he landed heavy punches on its stomach, sending it stumbling, while Yosik covered his nose in disgust, claiming this wasn't a fight but a chemical attack. Kong Chana spun in circles, so dizzy she could barely keep her feet. "How can a level 7 be this badly hurt?" Maru cried out while wildly flailing his arms in a high-speed slap fight with the monster. The creature screamed in pain as its own power turned against it, retching and collapsing into unconsciousness while Maru grinned at his friends and asked if he had won, only to find they were too tired to care, before the group all ended up washing up in the river. Kong Chana, who sat nearby and kept her eyes on Maru, asked, "So you can actually eat demons to learn their powers?" Maru nodded and explained that the last demon he had devoured could bounce attacks back at anyone. Yosik sneered at him. "So that's what all that dramatic talk was about? All that preparation for that?" Maru felt a bit embarrassed, but Kong just shrugged. "It doesn't matter. You did well. You're improving." Maru was blushing until she ruined the moment by adding, "But honestly, you're still disgusting for having to eat those things." Humiliated, they left soon after saying they needed to check for more demons. Maru sat there, puzzled by why he had to deal with that scary monster. "Why can't I ever look cool?" Then someone appeared behind him. "Are you Maru Han?" Maru froze and covered his face. "Who are you?" It was John. He only had one question. "Did you kill the level 5 demon on the mountain?" Considering Maru was supposed to be a level 1 user, this was extremely strange. Maru, feeling awkward, answered yes. John smiled. I'm here to take you to HQ in Seoul. Maru blinked, wondering if this meant he'd finally gotten a promotion. John asked if Maru knew what HQ was, to which Maru nodded, thinking it was just the place for the elite, so he wondered why he was being taken there. John grinned like a hero from a Korean drama and explained that he recognizes talent instantly. So let's ask him to spend less time drawing this guy and focus more on the artists we truly care about. Back at headquarters, Yu Young pressed the director to explain why he had held up the meeting. He told us about the fresh face who had just caught his eye. She instantly asked if he was talking about his son, the kid named Sunwoo, and the director confirmed that while the boy hadn't spoken to him since the divorce, the man he really hated was someone else who had been hired just because of family connections. Yu Young arched his brow, asking if those strong demons might be linked to the new recruit, and the other man nodded, saying he felt it was true and asked him to keep a close watch on Ganghwa Island as the scene shifted to a swirling yellow portal. Inside a house that looked like a home, a tiny, twisted monster crouched in the dark. It looked like a sickly, twisted little monster. Back at the police station, Maru was beaming like a fool, thrilled to be invited to work at headquarters. This was a big moment, then reality struck him. If they were calling him over, it meant the danger outside was far worse than what he just left behind. He had to keep in mind that staying safe was the most important thing. Right now, he sat in a quiet, beautiful office, but it felt even better to get noticed by someone at the very top. Then, Seonwoo was watching him from across the room. Why have you been walking around with that stupid smile all day? The arrogant one sneered, clearly hating to see a weakling like Maru enjoying an easy life in his office. But for once Maru stood his ground and retorted, "You're the incompetent one. You wanted to work at HQ, but you're not there, so you don't have the right to say anything." Seonwoo's face darkened as he stood up fuming, ready to fight because he would never sit there and take moral lectures from someone who smells like stinky armpits. Maru froze in his tracks, his eyes darting around the room as he realized with a sinking feeling that the only person who could have found out was the same scoundrel, Yasuk, who was currently pretending to be busy at his computer. His heart burned with the fury of 1,000 suns as he lunged forward, sending Yasuk sprinting for his life while Go Deokman laughed uncontrollably and Juwon ordered everyone to stop bullying Maru. Maru let out a breath of relief and told Juwon he was a good person, then clapped her hands together to say that since he had finally stopped hiding in the bathroom, the only bad thing left was his smell, which made her soul feel like it was leaving her body as he was crushed by never-ending embarrassment. What made things even worse was that he hated how Kong didn't care about anything. Even after he helped her that day, she still saw him as useless. He glanced down at the details of John's phone number. John had asked for a message once he decided, so Kong stood up and shouted that a level 2 monster had shown up. So Seonwoo seized her arm and declared, "I'm taking her." Because he was so bored at that office he felt like he might burst. Then he turned to Maru, saying, "You're coming with us. We need to build our team spirit." And as they climbed the mountain together, both of them sweated under the fierce sun. While Seonwoo thrilled at the chance to hunt monsters just like when we first met Kong Chana, Maru couldn't stand the psychopath for another second and just wanted to finish the job and go home. Then Seonwoo halted and warned, "This won't be as easy as you think," causing Maru to follow his gaze. As we moved forward, the whole house ahead was wrapped in a thick blanket of yellow dust. Maru thought that someone else had to be inside with them. Seonwoo didn't even look back, just marched forward and called to him to step it up. The gate groaned open, and Maru paused at the edge because something felt deeply wrong. Once inside the door, the thick yellow dust was so heavy it signaled the presence of a level 4 monster. They stepped inside, and Maru whispered that they should turn back because these things could pop up out of nowhere. But Seonwoo just kept walking forward. They finally found a bright green door. Maru felt a cold breath on its neck, knowing the monster was right behind it. Seonwoo twisted the handle, but it stayed locked tight. Maru stepped forward to stop him, shouting that it was too dangerous because they didn't know what waited inside. But Seonwoo was already putting on his gloves. "If you won't open it," he says, twisting his pinky to pry it open, "I'll just break it." Our boy jumps at the sound, but nothing comes to hurt him. Maru makes him feel foolish for acting so confident when he can't even open a lock. Seonwoo peeks through the keyhole and spots the scrawny little devil sitting all the way at the back of the room. The protagonist shoved him out of the way, insisting that he needed to have a look at it as well. Standing in the corner, he admitted the creature looked weak, but the other guy warned that judging by how much dust it left behind, it was at least level 7 or higher, and our boy got scared and wanted to know why such a powerful beast was even on this island. Seonwoo admits he has no clue what's going on, but now he finally gets why his heart was pounding so hard. For ages, he has been itching to clash with a monster truly worthy of his strength. Our boy bolted away, screaming that the lunatic would get us both killed and we needed to call headquarters immediately. But when he tried to turn the lock, it wouldn't budge. He begins pounding his shoulder against the barrier, desperate to figure out why they can't leave the way they entered. That's when he realizes it's definitely the demon hiding in the room who did it. Meanwhile, Seonmu kicked and punched the door while shouting for the recluse to come out so they could fight. But Maru wasn't interested in wasting any time against a level 7 demon psychopath. So he just stood there listening as the black hat suddenly started talking about how lonely he felt. He kept whispering lonely, lonely, as his face started to twist and warp. Seonmu stares at his shattered hand, confused that the door remains perfectly smooth, while Maru hammers the window with a chair in a futile attempt to break through. It looked like the lonely creature's power was building a trap for the house. Suddenly, his heart feels like it's squeezing tight. The panic attack hits hard, and he worries if anyone from the office will show up soon. 2 hours go by and he's already mad, wondering if those guys just forgot about them. Inside the office, Deepman shouts that they have a problem. Jaewon glances around and admits they've completely forgotten about their training date in Busan. Everyone starts rifling through piles of papers and muttering that they'll get it sorted soon. Kangchana smashes the keyboard, springs to his feet, sprints over, snatches the file, and tosses it to the guy before thanking everyone for their effort and promising to see them tomorrow. Jaewon sank onto the couch and declared that after all that hard work, it was time to relax with a peaceful cup of coffee. For a brief moment, everyone finds a quiet peace. That's when they all started wondering where those two had been for the last 3 hours. She rubs her forehead, sighing that this is exactly why you never send a rookie out by themselves. In a twist, she even used TikTok to ask Kangchana and another guy to just stay put. Thank goodness everything is as beautiful and wonderful as always, and thanks to the artist for going the extra mile. Even as she gets up with a bad feeling and says she's coming along too. She walks right past Jaewon, who gives her a worried warning that this spot is dangerously close to another dangerous place, making it hard to believe she just happened to be here when the girl looks so shaken by some deep pain. Yet she just stands up and yells for everyone to hurry because if I had to bet $1 trillion, I'd say her family was murdered by demons, which is why she's so desperate to kill them, and the scene quickly shifts to the house where everyone is inside frantically, asking where the two of them are. As the dust swirled around them, they spotted a shadow coming closer. Desperate fools were screaming at them not to shut the door. But it was too late. The door slammed right in their faces, leaving the fools wondering why they had barged in like that. Slumped on the floor, Jaewon asks what went wrong, learns the truth, and stands by the door to find the demons still refusing to leave. Just then, Kong yells for everyone to get back, pulls a tiny arm right out of her own body, and turns it into a sharp sword. She swings wildly, but it just stands there, completely untouched. Yoseok is scared that her attack couldn't even make a mark. Jaewon shouts for everyone to hold their breath, promising she's got it under control. She rolls up her sleeve to show a tiny black sphere resting on her arm. A tiny spider pops up with an ability called Demon Spider. She told Minnie to go inside, but the lock was too tiny for her chubby spider legs, so it didn't work. Our boy watches her comfort the spider and calls her the weirdest one he's seen yet. Seonmu finally snaps TikTok out of her freeze and tells her to move. But he tells her he has no special powers at all. Maru seizes the chance to sneer at him, claiming he's totally useless in a fight. But the boy fires back that our guy is the useless one, pointing out where all those absorbed abilities are and asking why he can't use his needle power to unlock everything. Our protagonist explains the creature is too far away, out of sight and beyond his power, making everyone feel useless at that very moment. Seonmu wonders who will save them if no one else is in the office. Jaewon explains that the leader won't be able to help because he's gone off to training and won't be back until tomorrow. Then Yoseok points out that Kim Yobak is still right there nearby. An old man with glasses suddenly pops up and terrifies everyone. When they asked how he got there, he said he just arrived since nobody had returned yet. Everyone is so stunned by this odd guy's total lack of presence that nobody even notices when he walks in. He approaches the lock to take a look when Jaewon asks if he can handle it, but he suddenly flops onto the floor and falls fast asleep. Maru wonders if this guy is just super calm or if he's got some weird power. Jaewon says she has no clue what his power is because she has never seen him use it. The poorest ones are utterly heartbroken. Every single person who tried to save them so far ended up being no help at all. Jaewon claps her hands to snap everyone into focus, urging them to work together to find a way out. But Seohan just points out that they've tried everything and there's no way out. She asks if he's ready to die for nothing. TikTok says we should wait for the leader while our boy nervously bites his nails. He glanced around and couldn't understand why Kong was just standing there doing nothing. There was just something strange about that. Yoseok was puzzled, wondering why the demon wasn't moving or trying to fight them. Just then, a sudden shake hits everyone without warning. Kong bolts right away, shouting that the noise came from the main room. She opens the door to peek inside, only to find the entire room swirling as if the walls and ceiling are collapsing and the house is shrinking right before her eyes. That's when Seonmu realizes the point of the lonely Hakusha. as they keep squeezing the space down until only a single room remains. Maru sees that since they can't break down the walls, they're gonna get crushed. Everyone is stuck without a clue, but our boy is really counting on us to find a way out. Then the story jumps back 4 years to show 2 women busy gathering plants. A younger, cuter Kong hops forward to greet them with a bright, happy hello. And then her sister runs up to give her a big hug. A happy family stands in the mountains, and you already know the story isn't going to end well. They were best friends who grew up together with their grandma. Kong spotted a drawing on the wall and warned her to stop or she'd get in trouble. But her sister smiled and said it was their happy family picture. The drawing on the wall was shrinking right along with it. She stood in the very house where she grew up and, with a sudden burst of her mummy power, drew out a huge sword to slash the wall. But the world kept getting smaller, and her sword began to crack. She knew she had to pour out more of her lifeblood, and as she became a bundle of bandages, the danger truly began to close in. Her neck was already turning gray, so Jaiwin yelled at her to stop because it was getting too dangerous. Just then, Maru sprinted in and ripped her out, snapping the sword in half. She watched everything vanish and broke down in tears, looking utterly heartbroken. Just in time, Maru dragged the girl out of the room, but she had fainted, so Jaiwin tried to wake her up. Our hero already knew she had fainted from the blood loss. I didn't get why she climbed all that way just for a plain wall. That's when Xianmu told us the house belonged to Kang's grandmother, who lost both her grandma and her younger brother right here. She barely made it on her own, but it was in that struggle that she finally gained her powers. Maru finally got it and knew exactly why she had acted scared. Yoziak says that for now, the house has finally stopped shrinking. They even have to find a way out soon before they run out of rooms. When Jaiwin saw the tiny piece Kong tore from the wall, she froze, recalling the old saying, "Soft water on hard stone keeps hitting until rage." Moments later, the sounds of attacks echoed through the forest. Xianmu finally managed to carve a tiny hole through a billion strikes with his knife. Everyone was so drained they couldn't move another muscle. A knife drops onto Maru's lap, and Xianmu declares that it is now his turn. He stands up with his broken arm and a dry throat that burns like fire. But right as he's about to begin, Kong grabs the knife from his hand and declares that she will do it instead. He asked her to take a bit more rest, but she insisted she was perfectly fine. She walks over to the wall and begins to scrape it. Our boy mentioned he heard this used to be her grandmother's home. He was surprised that this empty place was so clean, so she must have been taking care of it. She explains that she has been waiting for the demon who killed her family to come back. Maru can't figure out why she just knows the creature will return someday. She says the demon from back then was totally different. A woman-like figure stepped out from the gate. In that instant, fear froze her in place. As she glanced to the side, she saw someone else coming right at her. It had the body of a man, stared right at her, and looked like it could think for itself. They weren't just there to kill, but to achieve something bigger. She knows that if the prophecy comes true, that creature will show up again. Now he finally sees why she belongs on the island's team, even though she's only a level 7 user. She wonders if he's let down by her plain excuse, but Maru just shakes his head, admitting he's stuck here because there's no way out and the pay is too good to pass up. She keeps banging her head against the wall, insisting that if this goes on, he'll end up in Seoul soon because the pay there is even better. He wonders how she knows, and she tells him she saw Jaiwin talking to him that day. Right as she's about to tell him he'll do a great job, the entire place suddenly starts moving again. Everyone yells for them to run down the hall and get out of there. While Maru wonders what she was about to say during the escape, the house is already half its size the next morning. Everyone is so tired that they just don't know if this will ever stop. Yoziak insists their only hope to survive is the leader, yet he still hasn't shown up, while Kim Yobak sleeps soundly. Our kid is losing his mind because while everyone else is fighting to get away, that guy is still fast asleep. Just as things start shaking again, our hero shouts that they have to get Kim Yobak out of the hallway immediately. But the man stands up, covered in fungi and looking like a ghost. People wonder what's happening with him, and he says this moment feels just right. Suddenly the door bursts open and the fungus-covered beast rushes out, driven by pure desperation. Everyone shakes Kim Yi, urgently asking what he did. He says the mold fungus demon is inside him, but it spreads very slowly. Everyone cheers and calls him amazing and incredible, but he just stands there feeling shy. But Xian Wukong warns them not to get complacent, reminding them that the game isn't over until they've actually won. The demon stood before them weeping until something emerged from its back. Suddenly, a crowd of creatures appeared and stared right at them. Turns out the lonely person wasn't actually alone after all. Maru figured that as they all leaped to attack. A weird red string stretched out from its back. Kong told Yosuk to give everyone a big hug. He then switched on his zero presence power, which made him nearly invisible. Kong kept pushing forward and cutting through the demons, but the hallway was so narrow that her sword kept getting stuck in the walls. The moment it happened, the creatures began to crawl up her sword. Just as she thought she was about to get attacked, our brave boy lunged straight for a bite to the neck. Even as he was being eaten, he reached his hand up and squeezed it tight. As the ceiling began to drop, the TikTokers screamed that they were the only ones who would die. But our boy just said no. He showed off what the mirror could do. He flung his arms upward and ordered the ceiling to halt. His friend cheered for him, yet the demons kept charging until Xianwu snapped a pinky finger and blew one of their heads apart. He even ordered our little boy to stay hidden behind the barrier since he was only a level 1. Maru tried to shout a warning, but it was already too late. He was bitten all over his shoulder, arm, and stomach by a bunch of creatures climbing on him, until suddenly something huge and white stabbed right through the monsters out of nowhere. Suddenly, Juwon's tiny spider had grown as big as a house. With her eyes shut tight, she looked like she was holding the beast in check. While Kong cut through the monsters, Xianwu smashed them apart one by one. Inside the barrier, Xianwu and our boy locked eyes, staring hard at each other. They began to joke around and brag about how hard their friends work, acting silly in front of everyone while Juwon stood there confused, wondering why so many creatures keep pouring out of that room. The moment he hears that, our boy bolts away shouting that he'll take care of it now. He asked them to clear the way, and Kong and Xianwu did as he said. He barely slips past the monsters and tumbles into the room, only to find the real one crouching in the shadows behind the Smeagol's. He realizes the villain is just spawning clones every time one gets hit. So Maru lifts his arms and declares he'll smash the ceiling right there to end it. The moment he did it, he bolted for the exit, but his own power was making the ceiling crash down on him faster than he could escape. He barely survived a dangerous fall when his friends grabbed his arm, only to find the whole crowd cheering outside and marveling at how amazing his mirror power really was. Meanwhile, Kong glanced to the side, recalling the happy memories she shared there with her grandmother and brother. Maru saw this and turned off the mirror power since it wasn't needed anymore with the creature dead. He stared at the creature lying on the ground and lunged forward to eat it, leaving everyone watching in stunned confusion. He'd already eaten a monster and had to rush while the yellow dust was still floating in the air. He flipped the switch to wake up the creature's power and began shoving the walls apart. The trouble was that the power ate up the dust so fast, and soon he had no more to move them with. Kong grabbed his arm, checked that he was okay, and said thank you. What little he managed to bring back was enough to make the drawing show up again. Back at the office, Diakman jumps in with a grin, shouting that something wonderful is happening today. And that's when he finally notices the place is completely empty. He went out of his way to bring the best bread from Busan, but where were all the people? He keeps searching for the break room, wondering if those brats are still locked out there in the morning. Right then, he gets a call from John who asks what's going on. John jumps in to say he called Maru to the base, but she said no, and he's desperate to know why. Diakman glances to the side and spots her sleeping, looking beautiful and peaceful. Meanwhile, our boy was there all sweaty and smelly, but he was getting used to the team even though his life wasn't perfect yet. The scene jumps to our guy getting ripped in half while someone screams at him to run. But now we're traveling back 7 hours to see the spoiler that's coming. Our boy was so exhausted he was dying of sleep, complaining that he never imagined finding a job would be this hard. He was still worn out from fighting the demon. Then he heard a car zoom past, and it was a Porsche belonging to Xianwu, that filthy rich millionaire jerk. Even though our boy is still a shameless rascal, he boldly walks up to him and asks for a ride. But Xianwu just speeds off without saying a word. A TikToker suddenly pops up to complain about a rival with a fancy imported car, which seemed pretty strange for someone working in public service. Maru nods and admits that, in the end, the guy is just weird. Yosuk explains that even if a guy looks good, has lots of money, or stands tall, none of that counts if he has a bad attitude and no friends. The two of them laugh, but Maru starts to worry that with no money and no friends, he is losing at everything. The next scene finds them stumbling into the office, completely worn out. Diakman spread his arms wide, shouting that our boy is a powerful level 7 ability user. He's so confused he shoves the boss away, trying to make sense of what they're saying. That's when Juwon reveals that by eating a level 7 creature and stealing its powers, he has become a level 7 himself. As he was being patted on the back, someone joked that they used to think he was just dead weight, but now he's finally useful for something. Our boy turns red in the face, but he's happy to hear the team talking about him. Namiosa remarks that his talent is truly amazing, noting for the first time that he has encountered someone who just keeps getting stronger. Suddenly, Xianwu slammed the table down. He says the workday has begun, So it's time to stop talking and get to work. The poor boy realizes that this guy hates him just because he was humiliated for being weak. Right then, Miss Gorgeous taps his shoulder and asks if they can chat for a moment. Now outside, he sits on the bench and asks what's wrong. She says she just wanted to thank him for what happened at her grandmother's house yesterday. He scratched his head nervously and said, "Since we're a team, this was only natural." But then she spins around and admits that after everything, she finally knows exactly how she feels about him. Our boy turns bright red, wondering what happens next. And then she says he can't be a level 1 user, which is a tragedy because I was hoping for something better. He begged her to explain, and she told him it was impossible for him to have healed so quickly with only a level 1 power. He recalls the chubby beast he bit, noting it was level 1, but when Kong asks if he saw another demon before starting his job, he pauses to confirm he would never forget something so important. And that's when he spots the smoke trailing behind her. Suddenly, a wave of panic hits him and a black claw appears while a drooling, wolf-like humanoid stares at him, making his heart race. He tosses the can aside, and she asks if he's upset, so he tells her not to worry because his mind sometimes invents terrifying things. But she calls his bluff, takes his hand, and whispers that he's safe as long as she's by his side. "I wish I felt safe just like you." And now she is certain that this guy definitely has a secret past. That's when Diakman shows up and asks if you two are finally done with your little office date. With his cheeks burning red, he quickly denies they are close, while Kong just calmly explains that in a year's time, rain and demons will bring everything back to reality, leaving only their bond as something that truly matters. She didn't even think about it, and her words struck him with the force of a deadly monster, leaving a brutal wound in his heart. Now he lies motionless, cold, and still on the bench. Diakman teases him, and our boy tries to defend himself by insisting he already explained that it wasn't like that. Yet, in that very moment, he truly felt hurt by what he'd said, didn't he, folks? After a while, Juan says we should check the alerts before we head out. While Kong and our hero scramble up the steep mountains, the climb gets tougher. Since the time they talked on the bench, he's felt strange just being near her. Kong runs up to the meter and starts writing down the yellow dust. Meanwhile, Maru has decided he can't find time for a relationship because he knows everything will be over in just a year. They both stare deep in thought, desperate to find a way to put an end to these terrible demons. Suddenly, the phone begins to ring. A desperate cry for help echoes from Zone 3, with Yosuk's voice coming through. He warns that the dreaded leader Diakman is already beaten and his monstrous army is marching right for us. He tells them to watch what they say, and then suddenly the call just goes dead. Kong warns that this is worrying since the defeated Diakman was a level 10, leaving Maru shocked to learn that Lazy Guy is also a level 10. As yellow dust rises and she warns him to watch out, the demon approaching is unlike any they've ever seen before. A shadowy figure appears, they both brace for impact, and then a thin creature in a kimono steps out in front of them. The monster blinks its one eye, startling them both. It welcomes them with a happy greeting, says it's wonderful to meet humans, and asks if they can chat for a bit. It says they want to speak with the person in charge here. Maru is shocked to find that this strange thing can speak and talk just like a real person. Kong warns them to stay ready, but the monster pleads for peace, saying it just wants to talk and isn't looking for a fight. Maru didn't get what they were saying, but he remembered Yosuk's warning to never speak to the creature. But ignoring the warning, he sees it as a perfect chance to learn more, so he boldly asks the creature where it comes from. It answers that it comes from Maraka. Maru has no clue where that place is, so the demon tells him it's the darkest part of hell, where those with terrible lives are locked away in endless blackness to fight without ever stopping. Maru begins putting the clues together and wonders if that's a yes. Every demon walking this land was once a human person. Our boy suddenly recalls the taste of those creatures, which means he's been eating people. As soon as he vomits, the demon claims it's his turn to ask a question. Maru shakes with fear for a moment, but Kong pulls him back and hushes him up. Even though the demon looks friendly on the outside, she knows for sure it's the one that killed their leader. She readies a huge spear, but the demon urges her to stop because he hates violence. She doesn't hesitate for a second and jumps right in, ready to strike. He smiles and tells her that killing it now won't bring her brother back. She goes rigid with shock as he casually flicks his finger and sends her spear sailing off course. Then it blames her, claiming her own weakness caused her brother to die. And that's when a memory rushes back to him. Right when her brother stepped in front to shield her, I had to admit, he looked a whole lot like our boy. With a knife in his chest, he told her to run before falling into her arms. She had cried out in desperation, yet now, back in the present, she has no clue how this creature could possibly know that. The demon claims that since he is her younger brother, it was always her duty to keep him safe. Yet the little boy still passed away. Maru shouts Kang's name and dives forward to catch her in his arms. He stared in shock at the blood, wondering where it came from since he hadn't noticed anything happen. Maru just figured out that this thing can attack minds, and now they're in big trouble because our protagonist has a very weak one. The demon chuckled, saying they'd keep talking and leave that pitiful human behind. But Maru says no and yells at the monster to shut its filthy mouth. Then he charges at the demon, shouting that he won't let it speak about her like that. He smashes it right into a rock, knocking it right out of its head. While the demon is still fixing its teeth, Maru is already coming in for a second blow. The monster suddenly cackles and asks, "So that's his excuse? But didn't we just get rejected by her?" Out of nowhere, Maru freezes mid-step, feeling as if a sudden blow has struck his heart. He stammers, "That just doesn't make sense. He's never been turned down before, so this shouldn't bother him. So why does he suddenly feel dizzy? He doesn't have any romantic feelings for her."